Hi guys, welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to talk about very important topic in Next.js 13, which is server actions. And server action actually gives us flexibility to write less code on JavaScript and call the APIs or access to the database through the server components, right? And this line is very important that we can define server actions inside the server components and or called from the client component. So in this video, I will be covering both of these scenarios, and obviously I'll be showing you some easy examples and my own examples to elaborate server actions and its different scenarios. So this is the small app that I've been using in my last couple of videos as well, where I showed you how to fetch the data from MongoDB, create Mongoose schemas, create route handlers, and call the API to get this data from this Mongo database, right? And I also showed you how we can add the light and dark theming inside it. So in this video, I will be creating a form above this post section for the title and the description, and I'll be creating a button. If I click on that button, then I'll pass the data of the form to the database to save that, and I'll be doing it without creating an API and without writing any client side code, right? So let's go to our project, and just to give you an idea about the project structure. So this is the posts route, and you can see that slash post route. And if I click on the post, this data is coming from the MongoDB database, and I'm calling this local API, which I've already created and I showed you in my last video. And this is the route API slash posts, and it is connecting to the MongoDB database. It's using the Mongoose model and calling the find function to get the data, and it is returning this data to the client, right? But this page is the server component. So we have been learning that when we need to create a form and add a click event, then it has to be a client side component. Like we need to use some use effect hooks or use state hooks to maintain the data of each of the input elements in the form, right? But this is not the case in server components, or if we are using the server actions in the server component. So let me show you that how we can create forms on the server side. So I'll be creating a new form, and I'll be coming inside this container, and I'll be creating a new form. So first of all, if I go to the next.config.js, make sure you have added this experimental and then server actions equals to true. If you have not already added, then server actions is, you cannot use it in your project, right? So now in this page.jsx file, I'm going to create a new form. So form, and I'm going to give it a class name, and the class name I can give it styles form, right? And for now, let's keep it like this. And inside the form, I can create two input tags and one button. So I'm not explaining you how to write HTML or the CSS. So I'll be just being copying few HTML directly over here, right? And this is the div, and div contains first input which with the label, and this is the class I have applied, and this is the HTML for title, which is this title, right? And second one is for description, and the third one is the button, and I've given the type submit to it, right? And I'm going to save it. And if I see its CSS file, I've already added some CSS to it, like the dot form and dot input container dot label. And if I go to my UI, you can see that the form is visible. This is the title and this is the description. This is the button. Okay. So rather than actually adding the on change events to it and manage the states and add the use effect to handle the to address the change effects, I'm going to create a new function with this within this component. This function has to be an async function. Okay, and this function, we can call it add post action. We need to create action for implementing the server action. And the first line, if we need to create an action directly inside a server component, then we need to add this use server inside it, inside this function first. Okay, once we'll use it, we can fetch the data. This variable is going to contain the data of the all the input elements inside it. This input, and this is the text area. Okay, and the name properties are required. You need to give the attributes name equals to, and we'll be using these values to actually fetch the data of it. So I'm going to write const post title equals to data dot get, and this is going to be the title, and it's always a good practice to convert it into a string. Okay, and then I'm going to write for the post description, and this is going to be data.get to strings, and it is helping me writing code. It is suggesting me what do I need to write, and the plugin I'm using is actually tab 9 AI assistant. You can use this plugin in VS Code and it will help you in suggesting some code blocks. Usually it doesn't give you like this is the code it is suggesting. It might be right, but I don't want to write it. I want to store this data in my database. But first of all, let's verify what's contained inside it. So I'm going to save this file and go to my browser and see if it is printed. So this is the title, this is the description, and click add post, and it is not printed. So the reason is that we are not using this function anywhere in our form. So what we need to do is, in order to integrate server action, we need to add a server action property, and then we need to add post action in over here. But remember that you need to add type submit over here and the action, and these two things will all are only required to actually manage the data of this whole form. So if I save this file, let's go, and now I'm going to add the description, add post, and here you can see that it has printed the title and description which I added in this form. So this is awesome. We are getting the data in our action. Okay, and we have actually used form in our server component in Next.js 13. So now I'm going to I'm going to call the DB. So I'm going to write connect. So this has to be from the DB file. So you can see that it has actually imported the connect function from the DB file. If I quickly show you the DB file so you don't get confused. So you can see that I'm just connecting with the MongoDB URL, and I've stored this URL in my env file, right? That's it. And now after connecting, I need to pass this data to the database so it actually can save the data in the database. Okay, so the next line I'll be writing is I'll be first creating a new instance of the post model, which I've already created. If I quickly show you, this is the schema using Mongoose which I created. Okay, and inside it, I'm going to pass the title, and it's actually helping me out writing this. So the title equals to post title and then the description. Okay, and then I'm going to save it, right? And I'm going to just save this file. Let's go refresh, and I'm going to add the new title, new description. So let's save. I've added a post, and it is not actually showing this new data. So if I refresh the page, you can see that now it is visible. So why do I need to refresh it? This is where the concept comes in revalidation. So in order to revalidate the data, so we will be revalidate path, and it is going to be imported from next slash cache, and then I can write simply slash inside it. Okay, so now let's save this file. Let's go and let's refresh the page. And now next title, next description. Okay, now let's see without saving the file if it's visible. Yes, it is visible. Now we don't need to refresh the page. So in the server actions, you will have to manage that, but this slash is going to revalidate all the data that exists on this page. So you might be having the other API calls or other features or components being loaded on this page. So it's not a good practice, since this form is only related to get the data for this and not other components. So in order to only validate this particular API, this is where I'm fetching the data of all the posts using the local API which I created. And the next property that I can add to it is the tags, and in the tags I can write posts. And rather than adding slash, I can write posts to it. Now it will only validate the data for this posts route. Okay, that's it. And again, if I explain you what I have done, is that we have this route.ts file where I created this get requests. And for the post, I have not actually created any route handler or REST API that is responsible for getting the data from the client or from and processing the data, calling some APIs, or directly saving it inside the MongoDB database. Instead, I'm not even using any client-side code in this file. It is not coming from the client side. I'm processing this form directly from the server side because it's a server component, as I have not written use client at the top of it. Okay, and then I am processing the data on the server side. I am just saving the data in the MongoDB from the server side. So it's always a good practice to add some kind of validations inside it. So in order to add the validation, I can add the not post title or the post title. So I can add the description, and it is all already suggesting me what do I need to write. So this is if the title or post is empty, I'm just returning it from here and it will not be saved in the database. Although I've already written the required property in the database schema, but still on the front end side, it's good to have that. And then since we are using the async await to add a validation, we need to add the try catch blocks. So the try catch blocks, I don't know what it's suggesting. I don't need this. I just need to add it inside here. And then in the catch block, it will show me some error, and then it will show me this log. Okay, so that's it for the server side component, and this is where we are creating some actions, right? So now we are done with the first point. This is the point that actions can be defined inside the server components, and this is we have already validated. But in order to test that the same action can be called from the client component, so first we need to create a client component, and then we need to call this action, the server action that we have created. Okay, so before going further, just to give you an idea that we can have more than one actions in a component, in a server component. This is one. If you have a 10 or 20 API calls needs to be made on the page, and most of them needs to be called from the server side, you can have as much actions, server actions created directly in this component, and you can utilize that just by adding the action equals to add post action. Okay, so now let's move towards creating this action in a separate file. So first of all, I'm going to create a new folder inside my source folder, or like outside the source folder as well, we can do it. So it's better to add it in the source folder, and inside it, it's what happens. I'm going to create actions, and inside it I'm going to add a new file, and I'm going to name it post action.js. Okay, and inside it I will just be copying the same function which I created here, and just cut it from here, paste it. And what we need to do here is to only move this outside this function. Okay, now there are few things that I need to bring inside it, like the connect, post, and the revalidate. Okay, so actually if we just start writing the connect, we can get the db, we can remove it now, and then we need to add this post. So post, which is from the model, this has been imported. And then we have this revalidate from the next cache. Okay, and I can remove this, right? And the next thing is that in order to use this function, action function, outside this file, we need to export it, obviously. So I will be just writing export before the async keyword. So now if I come here, and rather than actually writing anything over here, I just need to import that action because I've already used this action over here. So in order to import that, I will just be removing it from here because these are not required. So I will just be adding So let's rewrite it. So it writes it automatically. Yeah, it is automatically imported, and let's save it. Now still we are using it from the server side, and this post action is also on the server side since we are using use server, and this is again the server component, but we have separated out the actions inside it. So now let's go ahead and see if it still works or not. So let's refresh, and we have this data. Let me verify on the MongoDB if it is actually inserting the data inside it or not. So it's loading the data, and yes, our data is being added over MongoDB, so our functionality is working fine. So separate title, separate description, okay, and add a post, and let's come down, and it has been added, it has been automatically revalidated. So our separate file of action is working as is before, right? This is awesome. And now let's go ahead and use this action from a client component. So I will be creating a new button below this add post button, and I'll be just passing some constant data to the database, and I'll be using this action in order to save the data actually, right? So and then let me create a new folder. So I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to name it add post. So let's create a new file. So I'm going to name it add post from client dot jsx, and we can have its some css file as well. So add post module.css, and we can update it css like this. We just be adding some button inside it, so I'll just be closing that, opening up the app add post client module, and inside it let me first create this, and it has been added. Let me update the name of it with the capital letter, and inside it first I'll be creating a button. So this button is going to be of type, so I won't be giving any type to it. So let's give it a class name, so styles dot button. All right, and for now I'm not going to add any click event to it since it is a client component, so we need to add a use client at the top, right? And since it is a client component, again, if we create any input element, input attribute, or create a form inside it, we'll have to import use state hooks or use effect hook as well. It ups to you how you manage that. Add on changes events on those input elements. Then we'll be gathering the data maybe from event.target.value, something like that. So you can do it. I'm assuming that you already know that how to build up a form, pass the data to a function, and add a submit event for all the form on the client side. But just to save your time, if you can do that, you need to do. But I'll just be constructing a constant data, assuming that that data is coming from a form which is created on this client side component. Okay, so first of all, I will be creating a new data. So let's say const form data equals to, and this is going to be the title equals to client title, and then the description, this is going to be the client description. Okay, this is the data I've constructed, and now in order to use that action I need to import that action. So I'm going to first let's import the styles which I've already used. So styles from add post module, and then I'm going to import that add post action, and this has been imported. Now in order to use that action from this button, let me add a button, uh, client side button. Okay, and then I'm going to add an on click. On click works on the client side as you already know, and then I'm going to add an arrow function, and then I can add post action. Then I can pass the form data to it, which I have created above. Okay, so let's save this file, and I can add this component in my page or anywhere else. So let's try to add this below this button. So I'm going to add it, add post from client, and we automatically imported in this file. You can see over here, right? So let's save it, and it should be visible over here. Yes, it's visible. And I don't need to fill any data over here because this is the server side form. I need to create a client side form, which I have not created. I'm assuming you will be creating yourself, since I'll be passing some constant data that I've just created as I've shown you. So this is where I have constructed this data. So let's see if it works fine or not. So I'll be clicking client side button. There's an error. What's the error inside it? Data.get is not a function. So actually, this data.get function comes from the form data class. So we need to convert it into the form data. So in order to convert the form data, um, let me show you. So form data is from the form data, and then the form data dot append title, and the form data is the content. This has to be the description. So the client title one, client description one. Okay, now you have to create this form data once you pass the data from the client components, and then reconstruct the data using this format. So I have saved this file, and this data, client title one, client description one, needs to be added in our database. So let's refresh the page just in case and click on the client side button and go down, and this has been added. This is awesome. And if we go to our MongoDB, let's go ahead. Let me refresh this, and this data has to be added in this file. Okay, so let's hear awesome, this has been added. So guys, we are using client side component in order to access the server actions to update the data in the database, and we don't have to create any route handler. Just like the get request, we could we if we want, we can remove the get request as well. We can get the data from the server directly. Okay, and one last thing in this video I just want to show you is some kind of animation, like how we are going to handle the process between calling this action, this server action, and before that data is saved in the database. There is some few seconds, depends upon the server speed. So I'll be importing something called a use transition. Okay, so let's add use transition hook from the React, and I will be adding it like a state. So inside it, I can have first, let me add it use transition, and then I'm going to add is pending, and then I can write the start transition. So is pending is able is will can give us any boolean value, whether there is a process between calling this action and the data is completely processed or not. And the start action needs to be added over here. So I can write start action with arrow function, this, and then again like this, and then I need to add another parentheses. Make sure you give it a proper parentheses. And in order to use the is pending, I've added the start transition, and let's add something like here. So I'm going to add is pending, and I can add a spinner, but I don't want to do that. So posting will be shown when is pending is true. So currently style.spinner is not available in my CSS file, so I'll be just be saving this. So let's go ahead and see if it works fine. And currently that posting is not visible, posting text. And if I click on it, You can see there is a posting visible, and once the data is saved, it gone. So if I click again, we will see that, right, inside the button. All right, thank you so much for watching my video. That's pretty much it. And make sure you subscribe my channel. It really encouraged me for creating more new videos for you guys. Don't forget to like my video and share it with your friends. See you in the next video.